Good afternoon, everyone. Live from Silicon Valley, California. This is Spiritual Fitness. My name is JM, and I welcome you all to ongoing series on Success Sadhana, where we'll discuss the fifth superpower, Yoga of the Tongue, with your host, Vaish, a veteran Bhakti yogi, author, and former monk. We are close to 20 members on Zoom and close to 15 members on Facebook. I have Shweka helping me out in managing social media today. Good afternoon, Vaish. Welcome back to another episode of Success Sadhana.
Hey, thanks a lot, JM. I can tell you're traveling.
Yes.
That's a different backdrop there. Good to see you, and good to be back with everybody. Thanks for joining in. My favorite topic, because it's something that's so close at hand and so adjustable. Well, maybe. Let's see. We'll talk about it. And it is definitely a superpower. And we're going to be talking today about yoga of the tongue. When I first started doing this seminar, people wanted to know what that was all about, because there are asanas for the tongue, actually, but we mean something different, because yoga's ultimate goal is really to come into pure consciousness, as that's what we are. And we can't be satisfied by any amount of adjustment of our external world until we've attended to our internal environment. And our internal environment, as it turns out, is really adjustable also through the process of yoga. And today I'm going to talk about yoga of the tongue, which means to use our speech, use our tongue to actually clear our consciousness. And when we do that, it also miraculously has a parallel effect on the world around us, the people around us, and so forth. I think you'll agree with me that the words we say to people and to ourselves have a noticeable impact. Can I get a yes on that? Okay, yeah. That's what I said. It's one of my favorite talks because it's so close at hand. It's palpable. It's something we come in contact with. However, we may forget the power of it. We may forget the gift that we have. So we're going to look at all that too today, and remember that we have something close at hand, our tongue, that's directing the way we go in life. And with a little adjustment, we can rearrange our lives in a positive way. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you, everybody. And let's start off with a little bit of introspection by closing our eyes and just going inwardly for a moment. And one of the reliable forces that we have going for us all the time is our breath. And when we don't, then we'll notice it. So let's notice for a minute that it's actually there. And hopefully for all of you, working well. So just draw your attention to your breath and notice that it's sustaining you. That feeling of being sustained by breath and noticing your existential situation is very empowering, because when I'm not aware of the fact that there's a higher power maintaining me, then I venture out into my circle of concern. I think I can fix everything, which I can't. But I can come to the point of power, which is in the present moment, and I can identify what my circle of influence is. And if I stay in that, then naturally and very quickly, I'll feel centered, balanced, and I'll be effective. So just breathe. Keep an alert mind, but relax. And watch the inhales and exhales. And as you're breathing, and just staying present, I'm going to read you a couple of quotes about speech. So just let them go in. One kind word can change someone's entire day. The tongue has no bones, but is strong enough to break a heart. So be careful with your words. If we understood the power of our thoughts, we would guard them more closely. If we understood the awesome power of our words, we would prefer silence to almost anything negative. If our thoughts and words, in our thoughts and words, we create our own weaknesses and our own strengths, our limitations and joys begin in our hearts. We can always replace negative with positive. And now just become aware of your tongue. And it's a free gift. Comes standard with every human body. You get one. And the way you use it determines the quality of your life. And now I'm going to say a few affirmations and just repeat after me behind muted mics with your eyes closed, still in a state of introspection. I am superior to negative thoughts and low actions. I forgive those who have harmed me in the past and peacefully detach from them. Everything that is happening now is happening for my ultimate good. I'm not my body and mind. I am a spiritual being. And just bring your awareness back to your breath. Rub your two hands together and open your eyes. We'll come back into the Zoom room. And I'm going to show you a few slides today to give you an idea of why I'm so excited about this topic. And I think I'm going to share the screen myself because I noticed that I'm a co-host and I can do that. So here I go. Oops. I hope you can speed read. I'm going through the whole thing. Okay. Now I want you to just think of some of the other species in the world. I mentioned a few weeks ago about the hummingbirds in my yard. They like my yard because I have a lot of flowers. And they have long tongues where they can drink nectar from flowers, which is a nice occupation, it seems to me. However, their speech is very limited. You've got lizards with tongues. What is this anyway? This one here. Is that a mongoose? Any biologist? It has a tongue. The antelope has a tongue. They all have tongues, but according to the wisdom literatures, the human tongue is special. We have syntax, grammar, and most of all, we can use it deliberately to chant mantra. Mantra, it's a spiritual formula that delivers the mind. It takes us beyond the mire of the complexity of thoughts, that are a conglomeration of all that we've taken in from the outside world so we can actually see ourselves. You see the figure here sitting in meditation, and this mantra is pronounced Om, and it's a seed mantra. I was once walking in India, and it was in a sacred village. I had stopped for a little break, and I kept hearing somebody saying Om. And my friends that I was walking with caught up to me finally. Said, someone around here is chanting Om, but I can't see anybody. And I kept looking around, and then one of my friends started laughing, and I said, "What is it?" And there was a water buffalo sitting there by the side of the road, and she was emitting this sound, but it sounded exactly like a person saying Om. I realized that was incidental. Of course, who knows? I mean, it could have been a special water buffalo that maybe was a yogi in the last life and was carrying over. But there is a way in which it reminded me, of course, animals make noises. They're pre-programmed in a lot of ways. Birds have a particular soundtrack that they can put out. They can learn a little more, minor birds and parrots and so forth, but it's not with the same consciousness that humans do have the facility for. So, thanks a lot, Nilat. It looks like a meerkat. We have it's good to know. Meerkats have tongues, but they also don't chant mantra. So the point is, it's not a meerkat. Okay. Well, we'll figure it out. Just be grateful that you have a tongue that you can use. I was listening to a scientific discussion about the difference between the human brain and tongue, and even the most advanced of the primates who can develop some kind of language. Coco, the mountain gorilla, I believe she was, had quite a vocabulary in signing, but when you get up to the next level of syntax and being able to say words with your tongue using syntax, it's a quantum leap. It's not just a little marginal increase, but it's huge. The way we're wired up with our tongues and our brains is phenomenal, and that we can actually express ourselves in poetical ways, in subtle ways, and we can say things that even the most advanced primates cannot say. For instance, one of the scientists was pointing out how if a gorilla wants a banana, can't say, well, yesterday I didn't want a banana, but today I do because I'm a little hungrier than I was yesterday. That just what I said is extremely complex and difficult to put together. I've just tried learning a second language and saying that. It's very difficult. A primate can't do that. They just say, want, banana, banana, banana. The syntax is not there. So the human tongue has so much versatility, and how we use it is highly consequential. Oops. Do you want to start sharing, JM, or
Sure.
do you trust mine more than your internet? We're up in the mountains, wherever you are. He's got mountain internet. I trust the mountain internet more than I trust me running the slideshow. So let's do that. So we just did this one just to look at all the animals and remember how we're special. And this is yoga wisdom right from the ancient literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, which has 18,000 verses about self-realization, all kinds of stories, wisdom, and so forth. And one of the astounding verses about speech and tongue is that if one can control the tongue, it's possible for one to control all the other senses. This is a consistent theme in the yoga teachings. Tongue is the gateway. So one of the first yoga practices is to use the tongue for a higher purpose. Actually, the person sitting in the front row in the middle with this purple sari on is a expert translator. She translates from Russian into English, and imagine the complexity of that. But there she is sitting with a number of her Russian colleagues on a kind of a retreat, and they're chanting mantra. That's why they have that kind of concentrated look on their face. That's one of the processes of bhakti yoga, is to use the tongue for mantra, as I've mentioned, and restraining the tongue, using it for higher topics and for mantra, is the way to transform the consciousness. Subhadra has written in the chat box a question: does that include controlling what you write, like on social media? Most definitely. And I'll get into that. I like this phrase, the tongue is a gateway sense, just like there are gateway drugs, like chocolate. It leads to other things. It's like, oh, it's no big deal. Next thing you know, you're attached to all kinds of stuff. No, I'm just kidding. But there are gateway drugs that are, at least that's what people call them. You know, you get involved a little bit, dabble here or there, and then it goes and becomes systemic. So the tongue is the gateway to all the other senses. And I'm reiterating this because it's important in the practice of yoga. And isn't it helpful to know that there's one place you can concentrate? If you just improve one sense, then the others will follow. Helpful? Yeah. So controlling the tongue is mentioned in one of the ancient literatures, which says that yoga actually begins with the tongue. That's where it all starts. Let's see the next slide. So a rudder, actually kind of shaped like a tongue in a way. It has, depends on the rudder, of course, but they're slightly oval and elongated oval. And without a rudder, you're finished. Anybody who sails, I've sailed boats, and I used to anyway, and I have proof because I have pictures of me sailing a boat. If anybody wants proof, I can provide it. And I know one thing I learned early on is that the rudder is vital. And it doesn't look like much. It's just hanging out at the end there. It's like, what do we need that for? It seems like an extra part. But actually, that's what determines the direction that one is going in a boat. And think of your tongue also as directing you, just like the rudder, in which way you go in your life. And if you think of it like that, then you'll be more conscious of how you use it, what direction you're pointing it. Just know that that is the fact. Whatever way you use your tongue is going to determine your direction in life. we create our world with our speech. So this is a theme. Come back in the Zoom room for a minute. We need to talk. We need to have a serious conversation here. The words that we speak are creative. And in fact, in some of the oldest wisdom literatures in the world, like the Bible, logos, in the beginning was the word. So this term, logos, or the word, spoken word, goes into all the sciences like biology, sociology, all the ology words. They indicate a kind of order. There's an order in the universe. Otherwise, why study it? If it's just completely random, if there's no meaning behind it, if there's no way to trace it back, then there's no use really in studying anything, because there's no categories that you can identify or no purpose behind it, no order. So ology or logos indicates order. Where did it start? With the word. That's the idea that the spoken word. So I'll give you an example that my teacher used to give. If you want to build a house or a skyscraper building, and what's the first thing you do? Well, you get an idea or an urge. I want to build a building. And then you verbalize it. You start talking about it. And when you talk about it, think of it this way for a minute. This is a thought experiment. When you start talking about building it, then what happens is you start manifesting the paraphernalia. For instance, let's just say you need funding. You call somebody up and say, I need funding. You just said a mantra, basically, like, I need money. Anybody ever use that mantra? Please send me some, yeah, please send me some funds. So, I need funding. There's a mantra. Somebody responds, okay, how much do you need? How much are you going to give me back? And then it's already there. The money's there, but you just start moving it by your speech. And then what else do you need? Well, you need a plan, and you'll talk about the blueprint, and you'll write it down, and it starts manifesting from the thought world, then through your speech, and then it starts getting on paper. Every one of you on this call knows what it's like to sit in meetings. By now, you've sat in enough to last you your lifetime, just in 2020, I think. Everybody's been sitting in these things. And what do? We just talk. We get in here and talk, and how's the company running? You all either own or work for very complicated organizations, companies, and how do they work? We just talked about it. You got on this little Zoom machine here and started talking, and things manifest. Somebody's there writing down your words or recording them on Otter. That's not an advertisement. And then they start manifesting outwardly. So in this way, my teacher was saying that everything in the world, it gets manifest through speech. Somebody has an idea, they verbalize it, then the ingredients for it start to manifest. Now, if you trace this back in the ancient wisdom literatures, they talk about how, that's how the whole universe actually develops. And through higher intelligence, the speech comes out, and then all the paraphernalia comes together. And Gidget's giving us stuff. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word, thank you, Gidget, stirs up anger. The tongue of the wise adorns knowledge, but the mouth of the fool gushes folly. Woo, that's nice stuff. As usual, Gidget's got the good stuff there. Thank you. So let's see a couple more slides before I run out the game clock on off the field. Yeah, look at that picture though. Isn't that cool? I mean, that's kind of literal. And then I love this one. Your word is your bond. My friend Mike once said this to me. He said, and my father used to say this to us all the time. Your word is your bond. Your word is your bond. Look how literal it is. Like, actually, in most states, you actually have to say, I do. And the priest or imam or whomever it is who's performing the ceremony has to say, I pronounce you married, and then you're married. It's not legal till you say it and he or she says it. So there's marriage vows. Have you ever sat in an exit row? I sit in exit rows all the time because I'm tall, and I like to find the most space that I can on any flight. So I end up there, and they always come by, and I've seen it so many times. the flight attendant will come by and then say, do you mind sitting? Can you help in the case of emergency? Are you willing and able to help? And then some people, they have their headsets on, and the flight attendant will say it again. I need a verbal yes. I need a verbal yes. And I was thinking, that's your bond. You said it. Yes, I'm going to help. If we hit the water, I'm going to help take the door off and make sure everyone else gets off too. You just obligated yourself to a lot of stuff. So the verdict of a judge sitting behind the bench, as they say, and he or she says, you're free to go. And then it's like, woohoo, I'm out of here. Or you got to spend the week in jail. And then what happens then? Somebody grabs you, two people grab you from each side, and you just whisked off to jail. Why? Because the judge just said it. That's it. That's your bond. You're in there. And this is another one, more subtle, but if you're some kind of a teacher, leader, or just a nice person, and people call you and they say, I'm really messed up, I need help. You say, I'll help you. You've just taken on a project for life. If the person has a lifetime problem, because you just said, I'm going to help you. And it's really, you're bonded to that. When you utter those words, yeah, sure, I'll help. Then there you are. So I'm just pointing out a few examples here, but our words are binding. Our words bind us to obligatory duties, and they can free us, or they can get us more entangled. Let's just see if anyone's resonating with anything yet. Gidget's resonating. Subhadra. Anybody else? Let's hear any reflections. Anything you heard so far that stuck with you?
This is Yan Yan. I'd like to.
Oh, Yan Yan, where are you?
Hey, yeah.
Okay.
Let me turn on my camera. Sorry.
Okay.
So,
there you are. We could see you.
Hey, when you mentioned about you start a project and you need to talk to people and about the funding, right? I don't like to think about money, but I have this project, and it's interesting that to a certain group that I have limited time, and so I present very limited information, and of course they're not convinced. They're not all on board. They're like, we don't get the whole picture. Not sure where you're going with this. So I get a lot of thrash, a lot of stalling. On the other hand, same project, I had a verbalized, showed my passion and my reason to my boss. And I was thinking very limited scope, but I did tell her that I am aware of a big picture. And there is a whole a bigger issue that we have to fix, but with limited resources, I decided to focus on very limited scope here. And next thing I know, that she had started drafting a proposal to ask for a consultant, the extra resources. And I'm like, huh? Well, where did all this come from? And she's like, yeah, I know that you need this support, you need this assurance so that you can go build your grand, plan. And so there it comes that she heard me, she heard the passion, the reason, and then she knows that I'm only looking at small things because I only have small resources. But she's like, well, as your manager, I can help you, at least try to get you better resources. And so, I'm very grateful and thrilled. And now I realize with the other group, because they're not convinced, I do need to share with them my bigger scheme, my bigger plan. So they don't look at, you asked me to dig this foundation. Why? It's treacherous. It's a lot of effort. Why do I need to do that? So I need to show them, hey, we're trying to build this, big building that can have, host all the conference and all the halls, they can see the benefit. then they would be more likely to say, okay, to get there, I'm willing to take this effort. Otherwise, they're like, too much effort. Why do you ask me? I have better things to do.
Well, thanks, Yan Yan. As usual, illustrating my abstract point with very down to earth and detailed example. I
And to
deeply
your
appreciate it.
point, if I don't realize this, I could hold a grudge and be very unhappy and utter like bashful words and then damage the relationship with that other group.
Mm,
Not realizing it's me that's withholding information, not sharing the whole complete picture.
very
That's
nicely put.
complete knowledge that
Mm,
hurts us.
right. I like the point you brought up about relationship too in speech. I'm going to go into that in just a minute. Thank you, Yan Yan. Okay, let's see if there's anybody else. Any reflections? I thought I saw Eric had your hand up. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes. Hi, everybody. I really liked the mantra that you said. If we understood the awesome power of our words, we would prefer silence to anything negative. And just the idea that we create our world with our words. But I've noticed some people, they can talk and talk and talk and nothing ever happens. So what's the difference there?
What do you mean by nothing ever happens?
Oh, yeah. Specifically, I mean, some people just dream up plans and talk like they're going to do something. But then many years later, they're still talking about it. So sometimes it seems the words do not manifest. I'm wondering if you can mention why that would be.
Yes, well, this is also a topic that comes up in the wisdom literatures that the sound vibration carries consciousness. And it's not exactly just the words that we say, but it's also the state of our consciousness when we say them and the context that we say them in as well. There are some other factors. For instance, if the judge is standing at 7-Eleven and not behind the bench in the courtroom, and somebody walks out and then, she says, you have to go to jail, they'll just get in their car and drive away, because that speech will be a little different because of the context. And also depends on the quality of our consciousness. This is a topic that comes up quite frequently in these wisdom literatures, is that the power of our speech also has a lot to do with our own consciousness. So when one person who's uttering a mantra, for instance, says it, who hasn't realized the mantra as fully, it doesn't have as much effect as somebody who's actually gone deeply within it and has realized the potency of the mantra. And so that, we do bring out a special quality that comes from us, that by context or by the power of our own developed consciousness when we speak, then it has more or less potency. And thank you. Good points and a nice question. Here's one from Mayank. There is a very famous proverb derived from the epic Ramayana, which means, proverb says, for making our word true, we could also give our lives. The kings in Sun Dynasty did give up their life to maintain their promises. That's true, yeah. And that's something we've talked about from the Yoga Sutras. It's one of the practices that precedes a meditation, and that is you have to be truthful, because you may notice that if you don't tell the truth, it's very difficult to ascertain your own personality, and your mind becomes disturbed as well. You start to live a dual existence and live in falsity. It's very difficult. Okay, let's see if we can do a couple more slides. And if you have points, you can just put them right up there on the chat or break in at any time. Here's one Subhadra brought up about the internet. It's the same if you write it. And once our words, once they're said or sent, I added that because of the internet, they can be only forgiven, not forgotten. Boy, are they indelible. And especially on the internet when you write something, because I don't know if it ever disappears after that. But yes, the way we write things to people is also speech. The written word is just abstracted speech. And so you may notice that if you are in an altered state when you write to somebody, like let's say anger is an altered state. It's not your normal state of mind. Have you ever done anything foolish when you're angry? Okay. I'm glad I'm not the only one. So if you write something to someone when you're angry, have you ever regretted it later? Like when you cool down, when the toxic effect of the anger goes down, and then you think about it like, oh, I'm glad I didn't send it yet. In fact, that was one of the great benefits of writing things on paper, because you had to actually wait till the next day to take it to the post office generally. You also had the benefit, you had to find an envelope, put a stamp on it, moisten the glue, close it, write the address, walk it down to the post office or the post box and put it in. By that time, maybe the anger's gone down and you're like, well, maybe I won't send this yet. Oh, that might have just saved you a relationship. But nowadays with the internet, the speech, you could just react in a minute. I was on a flight the other day and I was just watching somebody in front of me. I was amazed at how fast you could type with two thumbs. It made me reassess my whole approach to the iPhone. And she was zipping between, I couldn't read what she was saying, by the way. I could just, it was far enough away, but she was zipping between one app and another, communicating maybe with 5 people at one time and very quickly. Obviously an adroit person, but it's just possible to shoot off something and then feel like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So yeah, it's speech and it's indelible practically once it goes out on the internet. Oh, Blanca, good to see you. She's written up here on the board. When I'm trying to do many things in little time, I am more likely to forget what I actually said to someone. Yes, and oftentimes they don't forget because words that are kind are taken in and they can change somebody's life, actually. Somebody said something to you that's encouraging, especially somebody that you admire, and they just say a few words like, hey, I think you're all right. It's like, I'm all right? Okay. They just said 3 words, you're all right. Or is that 1 word? 2 words. And or 3 or 4, you are all right. So yeah, and if it's a harsh word, it can penetrate. As we heard that quote earlier, the tongue doesn't have any bones in it, but you can practically break somebody's heart from a couple of words. Yeah, thanks, Blanca. All right, I'm going to show you. Yes, please. Miriam, good, yes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about urge to talk. So urge to talk to me is with discomfort and with pain. So when I think about urge to talk, I think about my eyes and my ears. So they get the information from word, no matter which state I am in. They just get it without any kind, like they just come to me. However, my mind processes it still, I don't have much control about it. But for my tongue, I have to make sure I don't talk, I don't talk negatively, even I have some urge to talk. And that causes pain and discomfort. And for me to just really fight with that pain and discomfort in my body, to just get all these information from eyes and ears, but not talk. It just needs a lot of practice. We need to increase our threshold to just not talk anything. And one of the things that I learned here in this class is just increasing that threshold level. That's what I can get from what you said. I don't know if I'm right or not.
No, I appreciate what you're saying. It's really the essence of what we're talking about here, Miriam. Thank you for bringing it to the fore. Is that it doesn't happen automatically. It's consequential, the way we use our tongues, and it also requires practice, as you've just said. And what I'm presenting here today, my intention is to leave you with the feeling of having permission to control your tongue when you need to. As oftentimes it's like, oh, well, what's the difference? Or I'm not even aware of it. But yoga begins with the tongue. And yes, you should control the tongue. Here's a few admonitions I have for myself about speech I can share with you. One is be attentive to the power of your words. This is a consciousness raising conversation we're having here. And so one of the fruits of this, hopefully, is to just be attentive to the power of your words. You're extremely powerful. It's a superpower you have as a human to use your tongue and the syntax that you have. Don't take it for granted. Here's another practical tip, and that is to look up words before you react to them. What if somebody calls you this, that, the other thing, and then just say, hey, I'm going to look it up. And you look it up, and the way people often use words, they're not even sure what they're saying. But if you articulate it and look at it really closely, then you'll see that they don't even know what they're saying either. It's just sort of a nondescript way of expressing themselves. Ask, what does it really mean? What does it really mean? Abstract it a little bit. And don't say everything that's on your mind. This goes, to what you just said, Miriam, and as practice not saying everything. Try to be strategic and bring out the points that are most important. Subhadra, got your hand up. Please go ahead.
I was just wondering, because I was raised in a household where children are seen and not heard. And so I kind of was raised more restrictive about talking, and I get frustrated. So my question for you is, so when should we talk? Like, there's so many philosophical and psychological angles that you can approach talking, like, should you really be the teacher in this situation, or should you say too much or anything at all, or let the people learn for themselves, or like, what urge to speak should you listen to, and how often is it appropriate to really?
Okay, good question. Here's a little context for that. In the Bhagavad Gita, there in the 17th chapter, Krishna talks about the austerities of the tongue. So there's several ways he talks about it. He said you should be truthful. Your words should be truthful, beneficial. They should be avoid speech that offends. They should be pleasant, and you should also regularly recite mantras. These are the 5 directives. So now in the commentaries by the great teachers of yoga from days of yore, there is this point about using your speech to instruct others. Who should you instruct? People who sign up for it. Don't offer free advice here, there, and everywhere, because it falls on deaf ears. I mean, try instructing your parents sometime and see what happens. It's like, hey, mom, dad, I'm going to tell you a little something about life, and they're like, you don't tell us, we tell you. That it's not an appropriate context to pass on knowledge. But if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I want to hear what you have to say, or even like, you're my teacher, and you tell me something, and then even then you have to be a little careful, because people are sensitive. You have to go around the ego and actually present it in such a way that it's pleasing and they can appreciate it, put it in context. So There are different contexts for speaking according to your relationship, also the time and place. I have a friend who's really expert at organizing and managing, and he's just a leader, a great leader. So I've been in a lot of meetings with him because I'm on a, in like board of directors kind of things. And so I watched him and learned because he doesn't say that much. I'm like volunteering for everything and, how about this? And then then after watching how somebody who's seasoned at it would do after some years, I realized, well, he doesn't say everything. And then I asked him about it. And he said, if you try to bring points constantly, then everyone just takes it as noise and you have to pick your battles. Find the things that are most important and then bring it up. Like that's in the context of meetings. You probably all have that experience also. If you're the one who speaks up on every point, people don't necessarily they start tuning you out a little bit. There's that person again, bringing up his or her opinion. So come in on the parts that really matter. And you have to think about that. What's the most important topic that trumps all the other ones?
What if
Ariana, go ahead, please.
Just a quick question about what you mentioned. I think the last piece is, if people come to you and you're kind of like the trainer and you're explaining, what if they come to you with the same questions, like with the information you've already provided? How can you keep that patience, right? And explain it maybe again, or have them go back to the email? Like, how would you suggest that be done?
Do we have patience down as one of our superpowers, JM? It's definitely trying. I agree with you. And I think you answered your own question. It requires patience. There's a verse in the Bhagavatam, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that talks about teachers, and whether you're a parent teaching children, whether you're teaching something academic, whether you're a guru or an influencer or whatever you may be, that's in the position you're describing, and somebody comes to you, this verse talks about how patient you have to be. And oftentimes people do the opposite of what you say. And of course, if somebody proves him or herself to be incorrigible, sometimes not teaching can be better. If somebody's not envious though, but they just haven't got it yet, then it's best to be patient, yes, and go on trying to present it in the best way that you can. Because oftentimes people don't get it the first, second, third, fifth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th, but later on they do get it. So yes, patience is definitely important in that. Patience in speech. Yes, thank you for bringing that up. We have some hands up here. Subhadra, were you finished? Okay. And Rajesh, and then I see Wolf and Blanca. Yes, please,
Yes.
Rajesh.
Yeah. So, I think on the personal front, what I understood is pretty appropriate. But when we work in a corporate environment where the people are seeking proactiveness, if you're quiet in a meeting, you're treated as if, you're not actively participating in the discussion or a debate. How do we adjust to that environment? Because eventually what we are practicing in our personal life, it starts reflecting in our corporate words, behavior also. So I just
then just adjust. As I said earlier, it's according to context. So if that's your context, then be expert and use and speak accordingly. Of course, if you have nothing to say, there's an old saying, he had nothing to say, and then he said it. So a lot of people have nothing to say and they say it anyway. And then everyone's like, why did you bother? So try to add to the conversation. And the main point is, if you have a service mind, just talking for the sake of filling in space so you can keep a job is a little bit onerous, I would say. But if you have a service mind and you're thinking, how can I add to the conversation in the best possible way? Then your speech comes out well aligned. Think, how do I serve here? What's the best way to serve? I mean, there are other ways to speak when you're in a circle of people in corporate or anywhere else. And that is like, I want to impose my will on everybody else by the way I speak, and I have to be heard over everybody else. I mean, there are different degrees of that, but it's not that helpful, that kind of speech. So yeah, according to what's needed of you in a particular context, do the needful, but keep a service mind. Try to speak in a way that actually is helpful. If you do that, then your speech will be nicely accepted. And if it's not, what can you do? You did your best, right? Okay, there are a couple in the chat, and we have Wolf says, following the 2 + 2 + 1 rule, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 1 mouth. Yeah, I like that. And when I'm trying, this is Blanca, when I'm trying to do many things in little time. Oh, I think we read that one. And then Gandhimati says, silence in words is good, but also we need silence in thoughts. Yes, and the two affect one another, because when I speak, what I'm saying goes right into my ears too. I just like, bomb makers blow themselves up all the time. It's like, what happened to him? He was making a bomb, he blew himself up. So, we tend to get affected by our own activities and definitely by our own speech. Ankit says, sometimes speaking truth can be hurtful, even if done with compassion and goodwill. Is it better to stay quiet if the truth may hurt someone's feelings? This is a really important point. And there's a lot of ethics behind this about telling the truth. For instance, if let's just say you are hiding somebody who is being unlawfully pursued, and if you reveal where they are, then that person will be harmed. And in these cases, according to the law of ethics, you have the right to tell a non-truth, because it's to protect somebody, because ahimsa or nonviolence is the highest principle in that. However, if, just what's the opposite of that? I say, yeah, they're in here, go ahead. And the people are going to brutalize the person for an unjust cause. So telling that kind of truth or speaking. Now, on the other hand, if you have something important to tell someone that can help them, yes, sometimes the truth hurts. So it's always best to do it in such a way that people will be, can accept it. I mean, think of how, people who did that for you in your life told you the truth, but did it in such a way as to make sure the impact wasn't so much. I remember I was in kindergarten or something when President Kennedy was assassinated. And I just remember coming home and my mother sitting with me and talking to me, do you know what happened? And, it was kind of a traumatic experience for the whole nation. And she took her time to explain it in such a way, to kind of in a soothing way. She was telling the truth. She had to tell me what happened. She was like, no, nothing happened. Don't worry about it. That wouldn't have been helpful. But explaining it in such a way, trying to give me context of what the world's actually like and that these things happen and how we're going to go on and things like that can be helpful. So be kind, like Sesame Street. It takes the magic 7 times to repeat for it to sink in. Yeah, thanks, Wolf. If you don't speak up, all your ideas can become someone else's. Generally, they are anyway. They all come from the same source. 7 more minutes left. Okay, so let's just take a minute to see the last slides, because they're highly philosophical, and we'll go out on a high note. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay. So once you press send, words are gone. Words are free. It's how you use them that makes them valuable or not. That D needs an M on it. So there are iconic speeches And there are not so iconic speeches in the world, or vacuous speech. Let's see the next one. I made this point earlier, but it's really important. Even in modern physics, there's discussion about how the universe is a series of patterns of sound waves. Matter actually is not as substantial as we might think. It is a vibration, really. And the whole universe originates from sound, according to the Vedas. So that's where you want to look for transformation, is to sound. I'm just appreciating the picture. What you say will either bind or entangle you. So this is a mantra, a bona fide mantra from one of the oldest wisdom literatures in the world. In Sanskrit, you'll see on the second line, it says anavriti shabdat. So shabdat means sound, and anavriti means to become uncovered. So what it really means is you can liberate your mind by the power of spiritual sound. Spiritual sound, that's the key. Next. Key to your success. Remember that your words are seeds. You plant them in your hearts and minds and in the hearts and minds of others. So ask yourself this question: what kind of garden are you planting by your words? Is it weedy, or is it some valuable seeds? So mantra, that's sound vibration, but you're deliberately repeating the mantra. And when it goes in, it acts in such a way as to lift the mind above material thought and to reveal the higher self. Mantra. And we mentioned how sound carries consciousness. So the consciousness of the person you're hearing the mantra from is really important. And keep in mind that you are what you speak. These are like little mantras to take with you. And finally, beware of village talk. Because the opposite of mantra and powerful or empowered speech is just gossip. And it goes right to the heart, and it weakens our resolve in life and doesn't help us at all. It's like planting weeds, and we get chaos in our life. So avoid village talk. Gossip always gets people in trouble. Symptoms of a high-minded person. This is according to the one of the great teachers from thousands of years ago. Two symptoms you can see: steadiness and practice, because you can't fake steadiness. You either show up or you don't. And the second is also hard to fake, because our words tell what we actually have in our heart. So a high-minded person speaks words that are beneficial. And it doesn't mean that he or she can't speak the truth, even in a situation where it may seem harsh, but because of the condition of his or her consciousness, when the words come out, they have a reparative effect. Is that a word? Or did I just make that up? They have a beneficial effect to us because of the fact that what's in their heart actually comes into ours. In fact, it gets mixed with this special substance. It's like saffron, very subtle, and it's very pleasing. When somebody who's got a good heart, who's high-minded speaks, the quality of the vibration is different. So a final directive in how the world runs by mantra and the quality of speech and how to improve our lives. Thoughts are things, actually are things, and they manifest as words. If we say what's on our mind, generally, and I said, don't say everything on your mind, the words manifest into actions. We gave a little bit of evidence for that. And our actions turn into habits. Our habits develop our character, and our character develops our future. And as you know from previous programs, future means not just this life, next life too. So our destiny is dependent on our words. So practice mantra meditation, and it's also helpful to use affirmation. Find out, design what you want to say about yourself and about your life and write it down, and then say that to yourself. And you can even repeat it to others. And you'll find that just by doing that, you're going to feel differently about your your consciousness will transform in positive ways. JM, are you still there up in your mountain cave? He was very silent today because I think he's in meditation mode. He's way up high in some Himalayan cave. Still in meditation. Everyone okay? Did you survive the program today? Well, thank you very much for joining.
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Hopefully there's some takeaways for you. It's something that we're codifying and we'll put out in writing later on, so you can go over some of the points. And thank you everyone for writing into the box here. Yeah, Lao Tzu, exactly. Okay, so let's leave with the way that the yogis say hello and goodbye to each other up in their mountain caves in the Himalayas. They see these words, Haribol. So everyone can unmute, put on your camera,
Haribol.
and wave and say Haribol.
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 Oh,
Haribol.
Haribol.
Hari.
Thanks for joining, everybody. Look forward to seeing you next time. And
Thank you.
thank you.
keep your speech where you want it, right on the top level of your priorities. And you'll notice when we compare notes next week that many good things will manifest in your life from changing your speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Haribol.
See you
Appreciate
soon.
it.